How many wives can a ruler have? 1? 3? 6? 6 at the same time? Couple of hundred at the same time? This question seems strange in the modern world. Just have as much as you want as long as both parties are willing. But for the Eastern Roman Emperor Leo the Wise, this was the question that was going to decide the continuation of his dynasty and the legacy of his reign. Leo was the son of Emperor Basil I. Or was he? There is a theory that he wasn't Basil's biological son, but rather an illegitimate offspring of Emperor Michael III, whom Basil deposed. Leo's mother was both Basil's wife and Michael's mistress, so this theory has some merit. We'll never know Leo's true parentage for sure, but it matters little. What matters is that Leo and Basil didn't really like each other. Basil was a provincial man who enjoyed simple pleasures like hunting. Leo was born and raised in the capital under the tutelage of the best scholars of his age. The two simply had very little in common. Well, except for their love for women. Both were known womanizers. That is, however, not an interest that is conducive to very much father-son bonding time, so Basil and Leo remained distant. When Leo was 16 years old, Basil arranged a marriage between him and Theophano Martiniaci, a modest and pious girl from a good noble family. Suffice it to say, she didn't seem a good match for hormonal teen Leo, so he took a mistress, a young beauty called Zoes. The rumor about his affair quickly spread around the court, and people started asking Basil uncomfortable questions, like, "Is your 16-year-old son a fornicating degenerate?" Basil confronted Leo about the situation, but it looks like a horny teenager wasn't in for a discussion about the virtues of fidelity, so Basil had to slap him around. Leo tried to answer with slaps of his own, but a pumped capital boy was no match for an ex-wrestling champion Basil. So instead of asserting his independence, Leo got beaten up. In his memoirs, Leo writes, "Not listening to my objections, he immediately pulled my hair, threw me on the ground, and kicked and punched me until I was bleeding." After putting his son in his place, Basil declared Leo's affair over and married Zoe to a random court official. If the father and son were distant before, now their relationship was really screwed. Shortly after the beating occurred, Leo was caught carrying a knife in Basil's presence and was put under house arrest. This is the time when Theophano tried to repair their marriage. She bore him a daughter and was by his side throughout his imprisonment, but Leo resented their marriage for being forced on him by his father and wanted his beloved Zoe back. This resentment took its toll on Theophano, who became more religious in search of solace and dedicated herself to prayer and asceticism. 2 years after the incident with the knife, Basil's health took a turn for the worse, and he decided to release his heir apparent from house arrest. Not long after that, Basil went on a hunting trip and got seriously wounded in an accident. He allegedly got his belt caught in the antlers of a deer and was dragged 16 miles through the woods. Upon returning home, Basil died of his wounds. Leo is sometimes accused of orchestrating this incident, and the fact that Zoe's father was with Basil on that hunt lends some credence to this rumor. But both Leo's accusers and George R.R. Martin should tell me, how does one orchestrate a fatal accident involving a wild animal, because I sure don't know. Now Leo was the senior emperor. He and Theophano already had a daughter, but needed to produce a son to continue the imperial dynasty. But Leo's loveless marriage to an extremely chaste Theophano did not offer a lot of opportunities for that. No matter though, in 893, Theophano retired to a convent, and almost too conveniently, Zoe's husband died the next year. With no Basil to separate the lovebirds this time, Leo and Zoe got to imperial line continuation. In 897, Theophano passed away, so the two could officially marry. This was probably the happiest time of Leo's life. He was married to the woman he loved, and no one could interfere with his happiness. Except fate. In 899, Zoe died after a serious illness. She had given Leo 2 daughters, but still no son. Leo was twice a widower, but had produced no heir. Now, for a modern person, the deaths of his wives are very sad, but the issue of an heir doesn't sound like a big deal. Leo is still quite young, he can just marry once again. But for an inhabitant of the 9th century Eastern Roman Empire, it wasn't that simple. Their views on marriage were heavily influenced by the writings of Eastern Church Fathers, like St. Basil of Caesarea, who were opposed to third marriages. The reasoning behind it is tough to understand without going deep into the interpretation of the Bible. But basically, marriage in Christian Roman Empire was a holy sacrament, and you can't just have an unlimited amount of holy sacraments. In fact, Leo has just issued a law book in which he called a third marriage a mild form of fornication. But the empire needed an heir, and there is no way Leo was going to leave it in the hands of his drunkard young brother. For his plan to get the third marriage, Leo had two strong cards. Firstly, the current patriarch was his appointee Anthony. Anthony wasn't a pushover, but he was not too inflexible either. He wasn't going to grant Leo a dispensation willy-nilly, but if presented with a strong argument, he would oblige. For this, Leo used his deep knowledge of Christian writings and compiled a rigorous defense of his right of third marriage, based on the work of Western church fathers like St. Augustine, Ambrose, and Jerome. The Eastern clergymen weren't all convinced, but given the state importance of the situation, Anthony went ahead and provided a dispensation. Now Leo was free to find a third wife. For this occasion, he organized a bride show and chose for his wife a beautiful Eudokia Bayana. Leo was not going to waste what he thought to be his last chance at marriage, so in the April next year, Eudokia gave birth to a little Basil. Unfortunately, she didn't survive the childbirth. Now 3 times a widower at 35 years old, Leo was looking to be unmarried for the rest of his lifetime. This situation was sad, but it had a silver lining, since he now had a male heir. That is unless... Yes, a few days after his mother, little Basil died. But Leo was anything if not determined. After a state funeral for his short-lived family, and an appropriate period of mourning, Leo got back on his plan. Everyone in the church, including his friend and new patriarch Nicholas Mysticus, told him that a fourth marriage was out of the question, but that wasn't going to stop Leo. He decided on another plan. First, produce a son, then get him legitimized at all cost. With him on this plan was Leo's new mistress. She was named Zoe, like his original beloved, was famous for her beauty, and had a nickname Carbonopsina, meaning coal-black-eyed. Couple of years into their relationship, they had their first child, another daughter, and finally, in 905, a son. Now, how do you legitimize a child of a mistress after you already had 3 marriages? First, Leo had to get him acknowledged by the church and baptized. He struck a deal with Patriarch Nicholas to baptize little Constantine on a condition that Zoe would be set aside and never be seen in the palace again. But after the baptism, Leo just recalled Zoe from banishment, found a local priest willing to bend the rules, and got married to Zoe. That's my 4th wife, mother of legitimate future Basileus. You might just start calling her Augusta, church people. What you gonna do? What church people were going to do is refuse to recognize this union, bar Leo from church services, and threaten excommunication. This was a big problem. Without an official recognition of the marriage, Constantine's legitimacy would remain questionable, leaving him vulnerable to any power-hungry noble. A church synod was scheduled for 907 to decide on the issue, and Leo's chances weren't looking good. He tried to wheel and deal, and even got Pope Sergius to come on his side, but Nicholas and Constantinopolitan clergy were adamant in their refusal. Finally, in 907, Leo decided on a power move. With a few months left before the synod, Leo ordered Nicholas and all the bishops in the capital to be seized and removed from the city. The official pretext for the position of Nicholas was a connection between him and the ongoing revolt of Andronicus Ducas, which was most likely made up. This was a risky move. For a less popular emperor, it could spark massive riots, but Leo seems to have calculated well. His marriage woes were the closest that the populace had to a soap opera at the time. The people of Constantinople felt personally invested in the emperor's problems and had a great sympathy for him. His state funeral for Eudokia in infant Basil might have caused some clergymen to grumble, but the sight of him as a grieving husband and a father endeared the citizenry to Leo. There was still some unrest, but nothing that could spell major trouble for the emperor. Instead of the deposed Nicholas, Leo appointed his advisor Euthemius as the patriarch. Euthemius was not Leo's puppet, but he was willing to compromise. The synod decided to accept the marriage as a special exception, and young Constantine would be crowned, but Leo had to serve penance for his sins. Euthemius also refused to proclaim Zoe Augusta, but it was a small price to pay for ensuring Constantine's legitimacy. In his quest to further his dynasty, Leo had to contend with a lot of opposition. From his own inability to make things work with Theophano, to cruel fate, to obstinate clergy. But all's well that ends well. Little Constantine grew up to become a smart and capable emperor, and it is thanks to his literary work that we know so much about the life, customs and the events of his era. I guess we can thank Leo for not giving up after so many setbacks, and making the safety of the imperial succession his personal duty. I hope you liked the video. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one.